very hard for me, but I couldn't say no. So if I shed a tear, or wipe my nose or whatever,
And that's all right.
it's from my heart. It's my pleasure to stand before her friends and her family to say a few words about Miss Shirley Phillips. I always call her Miss Phillips because she was Miss Phillips. She wasn't Shirley, she was Miss Phillips, and that's how she carried herself. Miss Phillips worked side by side with me for 10 years at Fairmont Heights High School as our school's instructional leader. And the instructional leader's position covers everything instructional, all the testing, all the grades, making sure everybody was doing what they were supposed to do in the classroom, observe the teachers. She had a big job, and she worked hard at it and took a lot of weight off of my shoulders as the principal of the school at that time. She didn't know that I had already canvassed the faculty about who could best be the instructional leader in the building. We knew we had some gains to make. We weren't the best school in the county. We didn't have the best kids, but we had children that we wanted to educate. And when I went around to the staff and did an impromptu survey to say to them, I have this position as an instructional leader, who do you all think will be the best person for this job? I was the newest person on the staff because I was brought in as the principal. So I didn't know them, and I really didn't know Shirley. So when I went around and canvassed the faculty behind her back, I didn't tell her I was doing it. I just really wanted the honest position. I didn't know she wanted it. She never said anything to me about it. But there was not one person in the school who did not say that she was the ideal person for the academic coordinator of the school, to direct everything academic for the school. That was her job. And she did a great job at it. We had so many things going on, new programs coming in, and she was counseling students as well as supporting teachers. She was well respected by her colleagues and everyone that she came in contact with. She had been at Fairmont Heights for a number of years as an English teacher, so she knew basically all of the staff members. I didn't know. I was the newest person on board, but my job was to be the principal of the school. And I'm like, I can't be the principal of the school if I don't have someone who's with me who knows the ins and outs of what's going on, because I really didn't. And she was that person for me. She was the person that intervened in situations because she knew people and she knew me. She knew the students, she knew their parents, many of them. And at that time, you know, Fairmont Heights was 100% African American school. We didn't have any other children to work with. And we knew we had a job to bring our school up to standards, to make sure that we put kids where they belong, had jobs, were capable of going to college and becoming what they could become. That was our personal goal as a faculty. We knew that, and she was instrumental in making sure that every teacher knew that was our goal, that we want our children to be successful. Well, we had a situation one time with a student. I was standing out in the hallway with one of the teachers on the math hall, and this young man walks by and says to me, he walks by and the teacher says to me, Dr. Blue, that boy right there is the smartest boy in this building. Now let me tell you how I perceive that. This young man walked by, first thing I smelled was marijuana. Okay, I let it go. Then I had walking back and forth and everything, and the teacher looked at me and I looked at him. He said, he's got a pretty bad home life. I said, okay. But he's the smartest boy in this building. The teacher was adamant about it. I said, oh, I better take this to Miss Phillips because she's the one gonna handle this one. So we talked about it when I took it to Miss Phillips, and I said, you know, we got a student in this building, do you know him? And I gave him her name. She said, yeah, I know him. She says he's really having some difficulty. We found out his dad was in prison. His mother was not actually involved in his education. He was just wandering, floating, you know, had no idea what he wanted to do. So I said to Miss Phillips that, I said, look, we need to call this young man in and talk with him, find out what's going on with him. If he's the smartest boy in this school, he said, then there's something definitely going on. So we brought him in, and we talked to him, and he actually broke down in tears. He was a senior. I said, now I've been looking at your grades, and I found out that you're not passing calculus. That's how smart he was. I was a math major. I struggled through calculus. But he was a top of the class in calculus. I said, what's going on? You're not passing calculus. I said, you're a senior. And, you know, me and Shirley, we sitting around the table, we having this conversation with him. And you want to go to college? He said, yes, ma'am, I want to go to college. I said, well, you're not going to college if you don't pass calculus. I said, because you know the teacher is not going to give you the grade. I said, so we got to figure out how you're going to make up your class and pass this class. So Miss Phillips said, and if I call her Shirley, I'm not disrespecting her. You know, we had conversations like that. She called me Dr. Blue or Carolyn, whatever came to mind, we just said it. So I said to her, Miss Phillips, we need to talk with his teacher. And she said, okay. So she went and talked to the teacher, came back, and he said he wasn't doing any work. He was capable of doing the work. He was very intelligent, but he had some home problems. And that's what we had to pull him out of, to let him know that he was smart enough to have a future. So she talked to him and told him, we're going to get you a tutor. And we're going to work to get you into college. Is that what you want to do? He said he did, but he didn't know what to do. He had so many home problems. Number one, his dad was in prison. His mother had other children, younger, that took her attention away. I mean, just had the normal basic problems, and we knew that. So what we did is that we talked to him, and he said he wanted to go to college. So I said, well, you got to pass this teacher's class, because if you don't pass this teacher's class, you're not going to college, and you're not even going to graduate. So Miss Phillips always had bright ideas. She always knew what to say at the right time. So she said, well, if we get you a tutor, would you put your best foot forward to pass this class? And he said, yes, ma'am, I will. So Miss Phillips, your mother, found the cutest girl in the class, okay? Found the cutest girl in the class, who was the A student, by the way, and talked to her privately and said, we need you to help this young man pass the calculus class so that he can graduate and go to college. And she looked at Miss Phillips like, are you serious? You want me to help him? Now this is a kid that was always high on marijuana. I'm just going to be honest with you, okay? You couldn't help it because you smelled it all the time, okay? But he was smart. He was brilliant, okay? So she said, I don't know if I want to help him. He don't smell good all the time. I said, well, we're going to have to overlook that because his brains don't smell. I said, we need to get him into college and away from this area so that he can have an opportunity for a future. So she took a deep breath and she said, looked at Miss Phillips and said, and Miss Phillips just smiled. And you know she could smile and that would win you over, okay? And this young lady really liked Miss Phillips. So she said, okay, but he gonna have to take a bath or something because I can't stand that smell. I said, okay, we're gonna take care of that. You just get him out of calculus, okay? So we can get him to college. She did. She got him out. They went different places to study. He was already smart. He just had to get it together. He could pass calculus. He wouldn't be there if he didn't have the background knowledge to stay there. He just had so many problems, home, family problems, that he just could not focus. So Miss Phillips was wonderful in working with students. And one of the things that ended up happening is that, yes, he passed the class. He went to college. We took him over Landover. One day we had the big college fair there, and we said, you gotta go. Went there, got a scholarship to Albany State in Georgia. He graduated, got his master's in electrical engineering. She, on the other hand, went to Bennett, came back, got her doctorate in English. So the two of them now have a beautiful family. To God be the glory. And it was just a wonderful opportunity, one of the wonderful opportunities that we had where we knew that she and I had to intervene. Sometimes you gotta have people that will intervene in your life. You don't know where they're gonna come from or when they're gonna come, but we intervened. He was one student. If somebody say to me, I'm the principal of the school and this is the smartest kid in class, in the school, oh no, we're gonna fix that. And that was what she believed, and that's how we operated together, just seeking out things that we could do to make sure, because she was adamant that children get an education. If it wasn't a high school education, you had to have that. If you couldn't get a college education, that was okay, but you had to finish school. And she worked tirelessly in that area with the teachers and with the students to make sure that they did what they were supposed to do to get them academically ready to go to college. Some of them didn't go to college, but they knew that they could learn, and that was primarily due to her insistence on teachers teaching our children and children learning. That was her main goal. Kids can't learn if we don't teach, okay? So she was really good at what she did, very diplomatic. A lot of the staff members didn't know that I was even going to ask her to work with me, but no one that in the school just didn't say, I don't think she can do it. Everybody was adamant. So we had 100% proof that she was the one person that could bring us to the point where we needed to be with our children. So when I knew she knew the pulse of the school and had the respect of the staff, I had no doubt that whatever changes we needed to make in our staff and with our students, we could do it together, and that's what we did. She and I commandeered a classroom and made it our office so that we could have conference tables in our office and a secretary, and that students could come in and freely talk with us if that was the case, and teachers as well. She always had an opportunity to take care of her family, because we felt as a staff that family was important, because if family wasn't important, we couldn't do our jobs. She tremendously took care of her husband, took care of her mother while working with me, and had all of the time that she needed to have to do what she needed to do. She was just a phenomenal person. She impacted my life tremendously. Just being who she was, just gracious, just fabulous is what I call her, because she really was just that. And everybody liked her. She had a beautiful spirit about her, the way she talked to people, the way, especially students, they loved her. They could come to her for anything. Another situation we had was when we had a young teacher that came in, she was a secretary, and her son was over at the middle school, and he was really, really, really smart. So she said to Miss Phillips, what can we do? I want to get him prepared before we go to high school, before he comes to high school. So I said, Miss Phillips, is it possible for a child to take the SAT or the PSAT in the 7th grade? She said, yeah. I said, well, how come don't nobody tell nobody? I said, because if he can't, we need to find out where he's academically. And she said, we can do that. So we took him over to the middle school when they gave the PSAT, and he took it, and he has done exceptionally well. I think he's working at the University of Maryland now in the administration department. Okay, so she knew a lot about testing and instructional program, and she helped to move our school, Fairmont Heights High School, to a different level and change our mindsets about children being able to learn. She was just fabulous. I loved her as a sister and as a friend. And she was just all about working for children. She took care of, and at the same time took care of her husband, took care of her son, took care of her mother, and took care of everybody that needed her when she worked with me. She was phenomenal, and I loved her like a sister. And I thank God for helping me get through this, because this is very hard for me. Shirley and I were very close because we worked very close together for 10 years, and we talked a lot about family and about personal things and our goals and what we wanted to see happen. And as we adjust and prepare to live our lives without her, keep in mind that it's all the better, we're all the better for knowing her and knowing who she was as a woman, as a lady, as a family person, as a mother, as a grandmother. We're all better. I know I am. She was a true friend of mine and a confidant. There was nothing that I couldn't tell her that she didn't tell anybody. You know, you got friends sometimes you tell something, and it's all over the radio or whatever. She was not that kind of person. If she was your friend, she was your friend. And she kept every confidence that she had. She saw I'm a better person because of my closeness with her and the time that we spent together working at Fairmont Heights High School, her as the instructional specialist and me as the principal. We had a very close relationship because I never made a decision without getting her input. In fact, I'd send her out on the hallway and say, ask the teachers what they think about this. And they'd tell her because they knew her well enough to talk honestly with her. And she'd come back and she'd tell me, she said, well, I think this is the go. They really like it. Let's go ahead with it. And we did. But she was a dear, dear, dear friend of mine. And I'm all the better because of her influence in my life. And Shirley, all I really want to say to you is that may you be blessed in the next life as I was in this one by just knowing you. Thank you.